I know when I'm looking at properties, if I see a property that's listed, and let's use easy numbers, right? Like in our market, it's let's say between $80,000 and $100,000 a door. So if I see, you're trying to sell me a triplex, 3 doors for $450, I'm saying no, because I know that that's not going to work in my market. So right away, it's truly knowing your market and knowing the numbers that matter.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else with your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grinzik.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grinzik. With me, as always, is John Cohen. How are we doing?
We're doing good. As you said earlier, it's a slow day. Very, very unlikely.
Yeah.
But we got some time to think today, which is it's either good or tomorrow.
It's dangerous. That's for sure.
It's either good and everything's going good, or tomorrow will be a disaster. Yeah. So
we'll see what happens. I think it's going good though. I think we're
sure. Why not?
maybe not. Got some good guests on today. Going to be interesting because similar space to us, but doing a little bit differently. A lot of creative financing, using other people's money, owning stuff outright. Definitely doing a lot of stuff, marketing, books, stuff like that. So some good experience and, good job being able to tell people how they're doing it. So I'm excited to pick their brain, learn a little bit more about the different strategies in our space. Cause I think too many people get caught up on, syndication, and that's how we're going to buy multifamily, or we're just going to buy small multifamily ourselves. So I think it'll be interesting to hear how they've done it. So with that being said, Mel, Dave, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us on.
Awesome. So can you guys either collectively or individually tell us who you are, where you're from, background, how you got into it, and what you guys are doing now?
Sure. Awesome. Well, some of you may know us through Instagram or Facebook, Investor Mel and Dave. We specialize in buying multifamily residences with none of our own money. We solely own 24 buildings and over 100 units.
Yeah. So we started out, I had one, she had two. I had a single family dwelling. Mel had, I think, a duplex and a triplex. And we met, we both wanted to keep growing, and then we each had one, so we thought, why stop there? Sky's the limit.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's awesome.
So, give us a little bit more background, history. How you guys decided to start partnering and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and the partnering was easy because we fell in love, so we had to do it.
There you go.
Well, I fell in love anyway. Who knows?
I was about to say at least one of you did, right?
Yeah. Jury's out. It's debatable.
He convinced me.
Yeah.
But I was in high school, and I remember I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. And I remember hearing people, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, go be whatever. And, I started talking to tax people, and they said, well, that's all fine and dandy, but, you pay half of it to the government. What's the point, right? So that's when I read a book on real estate. And just the tax savings, or not tax savings, but just the tax advantages that come with real estate was just unreal. So that's when I realized, I want to make a lot of money, but I want to keep my money as well. So that's what kind of veered me into it. And I always have I shouldn't say romantic, but I love buildings, right? I just like brick and mortar. I love looking at buildings.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
Easy enough.
Yeah. So you guys are up to 24 buildings. You started with you said a single family and a duplex. Is that right? Or was it 2 buildings?
Yeah. So Dave had the single dwelling. I had a duplex and a triplex.
Okay. So were those bought traditionally, and then you guys started learning about creative ways to do it? Or you heard about creative ways to finance, whether it's seller financing, refinancing people out? We'll get into all the different ways you guys have structured some stuff, but was it bought one, didn't like it, decided to change, or you found out about it early, was like, this is how I want to do it, and just took off running?
Yeah, it took us a little bit. We, at first we did the traditional burst strategy or flip to sell, bought a property
with our own money,
refinanced it, took that money out, bought the next building, refinanced it. So we did that about 4 or 5 times or so.
Yeah.
And then
when was this?
2016, between
Okay.
2015 and 2016.
Yeah.
So we got up to about 5 or 6 buildings.
And then we were stuck, right? So it's like, okay, well, we don't
Our
have enough.
ratios made no more sense.
Yeah, it made no more
Right.
sense. We couldn't refinance right away. So we're like, okay, we're going to have to wait another 4 or 5 years or whatever, how long. But we didn't want to wait. And we kept hearing about creative financing words. We were overwhelmed and didn't know, should we do this? Is it even legal? How do we structure it? How do we make sure to pay back our private lenders if we do go ahead with it? We heard a lot of horror stories, and then we did a lot of research, and we decided to finally go for it.
Yeah. Honestly, guys, and then at 2017 is when we bought 12 multifamily buildings in 12 months. So like I said, from 2013 to 2016, we had gone up to like 6, maybe 2 a year, that type of thing.
Mhm.
But as soon as it clicked, it was just like a rocket went off in our heads. And as soon as we understood that we could, utilize the seller in the transaction, owner financing, seller financing, vendor take back, whatever you want to call it. As soon as we realized that the seller is now part of the equation when purchasing buildings, that's when we did the 12 and 12. And it just, we still do it to this day. That's one of our first questions, when we meet with the sellers about creative financing. So you just don't know what you don't know, right? And as soon as you turn that stone over, you can't, what's that saying? You can't put the toothpaste back in the...
Yeah. I think part of it as well is that you thought, we think, well, why would anybody want to do that? And then when you started realizing, wait a second, we can make this a win-win, right? So of course we win, we get the property we want to buy, but they also win, right? They're making interest, there's capital gains and all that kind of stuff, right? They get for their capital gains. So as soon as we realized that, wait a second, we win, they win, everybody's happy, we decided to go for it. And yeah, that's when we exploded.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. I think a ton of people are, familiar with the idea of seller financing. I think the thing that's interesting for me is it feels like everybody, especially now, and I think over the last couple of years, has been like, well, seller financing isn't even possible anymore. Like it's, you're not going to find it. You're not going to be able to do it and put it together. So I think it's super interesting to hear that you guys have built that success and continue to build on it and find those opportunities. Can you dive a little bit into how you find people that are willing to do it, how you recognize that they're going to be willing to do it, and then how is that conversation with that person that you're able to, one, portray the idea, because it's not always an easy thing to understand for people, explain the advantages of it and get them over any concerns that they have.
Yeah. And I find most of the time it's off-market deals and we're dealing directly with the sellers, right? But again, a lot of them are through the realtors as well. So it's really getting across the fact that, like, as soon as they understand that there's going to be some benefit to them as well, right? Whether it be, the purchase price is going to be a lot more attractive because they're helping with financing. So that's something that we go, I'm never afraid, and I'm not just saying I'm going to pay any outstanding or outlandish price, but I'm not afraid to give the seller their asking price if the deal makes sense, right? If I can make money and they can make money and they can help me with owner financing and I can bring the building from here to here. So that letting having them understand, that we're not afraid to give them the price that they want, right? So it's a win-win there. They can help with the owner financing, which helps them with their taxes. So the capital gains, right? They get taxed on the amount, that they sell or in that year. And then they get to spread the love. So the portion that they hold back, they get to, spread it over that. I think it's up to like 5 years. And then plus they're making interest on their money and they still have interest in the building. So let's say we default, you get your building back. We've made improvements to the building. So, and I know no seller wants to take their building back, but if it does happen, they get the same building that they sold you, plus you've made improvements in it. So they get a better building, back. So it's really talking to them about that and showing them, like when we show them our math, like again, because I'm a math guy, like I need to see numbers. I love numbers. So I show them my cash flow matrix and I'm like, here's your building. Even if I wanted to bring it to, because most of the time the debt coverage ratio doesn't make sense. I'll be like, even if I want to bring it to a financial institution, the numbers, if you want that purchase price, the numbers don't make sense right now. So, help me, help you. Let's help each other. I'm okay with buying it at that price. You hold financing. Let me get the rents up. Let me force the appreciation. Let us do what we do. And then I can finally refinance it, bring it to the bank, and pay you out completely. So, we'll find buildings that they're on the market for a long time and they don't make sense. And this is how we get into them.
Yeah. And when you mentioned, a lot of people say that it's not out there and can't be done or nobody's doing it. We were the same. Nobody was doing it. Everybody we talked about say, it can't be done. Nobody's going to go for it.
The unicorn, right?
Same thing. We heard no, 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 no. And I think for listeners out there is that we heard a lot of no's. We don't get yeses every time. We just look at a lot of deals to find the ones that A, make sense, and B, they are willing to do the creative financing, right? So no, it doesn't work every time. We look at a lot of deals. We're out there. People know who we are. But again, that doesn't happen in the first week you're going to start, right? So you got to be persevere. Once you start doing it, it does get easier.
Absolutely.
Do you guys know, because I think that, that's a excellent point, right? Everyone thinks that I'm going to pick up the phone, make one call, and a seller's just going to give me seller financing, or the opposite. No one's ever going to do it. How many deals do you think that you look at before you get close, or you say, okay, I know we've looked at 100 deals. The next one, just numbers. What is the average amount of deals you look at before you get close on a seller saying yes?
And we probably look at, I'd say maybe 5 deals a day. All day, every day, we're getting deals that come in. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. But let's say roughly on average, about 5 deals a day come across my desk, like serious deals, right? That I'm actually looking at the numbers. And then we'll always have about 5 to 10 deals under contract. And out of them, because if they make sense and there's owner financing, we'll probably end up closing one of them. But most of the time, the ones we have under contract will be owner finance. But again, I've looked at 5 a day for how many days to get those 5 under contract. So if we kind of do the math there, hopefully I've answered your question in that. But that's kind of.
No, I think it helps, right? Because I don't.
You're basically talking about 1%.
Yeah,
if it's 5 a day for call it 250 days, because maybe you guys take weekends, maybe you don't. I don't know. That's 700 to 1,000 deals. You're talking about one a month. That's 12. You're talking about give or take 1%.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit more.
I think that if you would have said, well, no, every 100 deals we get one, I think that would have been scripted. I don't think it's not. That's not the type of science it is, right? Especially when you're dealing in that space. If a broker sends you a deal that's on the market, of course it's going to be difficult to convince that seller to seller finance it, because almost anyone can go to a bank and get money today. So why would that seller want to sell it to you, owner financed, if he could just wash his hands of the transaction? Tax benefits aside, right? Forgetting that, he wants to be done. Like you said, they don't want to take their property back. So it's not a. And I think people have to hear this, is it's not cut and dry. You call on 100 properties, one of them is going to be a deal. It's, some months are better than others. There's times of the year where I'm sure people are more incentive to seller finance than others. And it's like you said, you have to turn over a lot of rocks or a lot of stones to find that deal. But when you find that deal and it checks off that box, you may be able to give that guy more than what he thought it was ever worth, because it's a win-win for everybody. It's like, hey, structure it this way and I can give you $1 million. Structure it this way, you're going to get $600,000. What do you want to do, right? So I think that it's important for people to realize that, don't take no for an answer. The persistency, I think, is key, because did I not have this conversation at lunch? I said,
well, I was thinking of that, because having the conversation and the fact that they were just talking about constant deal flow, even when you have deals under contract and not closing every deal you put under contract, is huge, because it means you guys aren't getting stuck on one deal and putting all your eggs on that deal and needing it to close. You guys are consistently looking for new deals, putting new deals under contract until you find the one that makes absolute sense, and then going out and taking that one down. So I think that's a fantastic mindset and strategy to have. And I think that's why it's led, at least in part, if not a lot, to the success you guys have had over the past couple of years.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys. And just as you're talking, the last portion you said, it really keeps us, how do I say this? Not that it keeps us true or honest, but it keeps us in line with our business model and our business practices, where we don't get too emotional on deals. So like I said, we have between 5 and 10 under contract at all times.
Yeah.
If the terms and conditions, we're asking the sellers for extension, we're asking them for different things because, does it make sense? If another deal comes along that's a better deal, I'm not emotionally attached. And again, it's power in numbers. It's finding the deal that cash flow is the best, that has the best terms, that has the best potential for that increase. So I find that constant like you said, influx of deals really helps to not get attached, because we see it all the time where someone is bummed out when they miss out on a deal, and it's like, if I took time to be, feel sorry for myself for every deal that we missed out on or turned away, that's not how you're going to get to wealth. Just keep looking at deals, keep getting and close on the ones you can, and then hopefully they're the best cash flowing ones out of all of them.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's important, because I think that, that's why, I originally started, early days, I bought some, regardless, there was a period of time where I was, wholesaling, or not wholesaling, I was doing some fix and flips. And even when I was an agent early on, I hated this single family space for that immediate reaction. It's, I don't like the way the kitchen, I don't like the tile. It's like, change the fucking tile, right? But like on the commercial side or the multifamily side or the bigger deals, if Chris comes over to me at my desk, he's like, we gotta buy this deal. It's so, and I look at it and the numbers don't work, I kill it. It's over. And it might take someone a little bit of time to get beat up to realize that, don't fall in love with a deal. But if you don't learn quick enough, you're probably out of the business. And on the flip side, like you said, if there are times where you fall in love with a building because you like the architecture, right? You're willing to do things that may not make the most, sense, but you really like the location or it's perfect, right? And you'll pay for it. That's the unquantifiable side of real estate. It's like, well, listen, I love, this architecture, right? I'm going to buy it. But when you're looking at it strictly on numbers, it's a lot easier to turn the page. It doesn't check off our cash flow requirements, right? We're out. It's a very easy decision to pass. And if you have a pipeline, it makes it that much better. If you have one deal and you have no deals you're looking at, you're going to try, you're not going to turn the page as quickly. When you have 5 deals under contract, and if this seller doesn't give you an extension, okay, whatever, he's done, we'll move on to the next guy. So I think that's,
Yeah.
Things happen and it's out of your control, right? You always want to have deals. And if we don't have enough deals, it's almost like we get anxiety, like, hey, what's wrong? We need to look more, right? If you don't have any deals under contract, we're doing well. We need to look at more deals. We got to find more to look at, more under contract. Because reality is, not all of them are going to end up working out for whatever reason.
Now, are you guys buying deals in your backyard, in other states? What size deals? Talk about that, because I think that's, I think people want to understand that, right? Would you recommend going to buy a duplex across the country, or everything we buy is within a 3-hour radius, or how's that look for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And as for now, yes, it's all kind of in our backyard. And we're in Canada. We're in North Bay, Ontario, so we're about 3 hours north of Toronto. However, we have been looking. 2020 is, we want to buy all over the place, and I'm looking places in Florida. I'm looking, out east here in Canada, out west as well, and I'm looking different places in the States. And the owner, again, when I hear people say there's no owner financing, like, how is Dave from 3 hours north of Toronto able to find deals in Florida with owner financing? It's because it's everywhere and it exists. So I just want people to take off the pink glasses, the rosy glasses, and just understand that it's reality. Owner financing is everywhere.
You're maybe not just talking to the right people, right? Because it does exist. You just need to be out there more.
And what?
Sorry.
No, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, and as for types of buildings, is that what you're going to kind of?
I was about to say, and then, so great. Now the next part is going to be so is it 2 families, 24, 100 units? Well, not 100 units, obviously, but what's types of buildings?
And right now, our biggest multifamily is a 17-unit building. And we've got other ones under contract. We're also looking aggressively at other places. So that being said, our mindset is not, and here's where we used to look. We used to just want big buildings that were sexy, not that it was an ego thing, but a little bit of an ego thing right at the start,
yeah,
right?
For sure.
You want that big building that everyone goes, oh, that's yours.
Big sexy building, you drive by and you're like, oh,
I say that all. I don't want to drive our investors through our properties. It's not, they're not the Class A, new construction. It's like, that's mine. I want to tell everybody that's mine. Mine's over there. It is what it is.
It's sexy cash flow instead of sexy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you can make it nice. But that's the thing is, anyone can throw a big down payment and make a building cash flow, right? And we see that more and more. But to actually be, proactive and look past the brick and mortar and look at the numbers, look at where it's going to go. Look at, again, your return on time, your return on investment. Like, we look at big deals, and sometimes it was like a 22 unit building. I say big, but I mean, for our spectrum, I guess there was a 22 unit building, and so I guess now it's not. We're going for bigger buildings now. So I guess this is like completely different. But back then we could look at triplexes, and we looked at this one, and this big building made like $500 a month. Needed a lot of the tenants as opposed to so
it's return on investment, but Dave is bang on ROT, right? Return on time. What is that? What is that percentage? What is that amount? And you got to look at both, right? And I mean, often we'll come across deals where the cash flow is there, the forced appreciation is there, but it's going to be a lot of work because the reality is it's maybe a rougher set of tenants in the entire building.
F-class tenants, right?
It's going to be more or less a nightmare to deal with it. Costs are there.
I like F-class. I like F-class tenants, right? No, everyone says D-class. It's funny. So I literally had this conversation at lunch. It's like, you know what? You might make, let's just throw the arbitrary $100,000 out there, but what's your time worth, right? If you're getting paid $2 an hour, I don't care what it looks like. That's not worth my time. So you got to balance your return on, your ROI on your ROT, quoting, because your time is an asset you can never get more of. You only have a finite amount. So you want to maximize your time, and whether it's 22, 100, 500 units, a duplex, that's the part, how much effort is it going to take you? Is it worth that effort? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have had just do it, right? Figure it out. Everything's worth your time. Today, not so much, right? Yeah. I've got punched in the face a couple times. So I understand that, those tenants may not, listen, on paper, it looks great, but you don't know the headaches you're going to have. And I've gone through that. I think everyone should, but if someone's telling you not to do it and they have experience, don't,
right.
Do it if you'd like, but
ironically, we just had a brief conversation about it a few days ago, saying, okay, well now we're hands off. We have a director, we have a director of operations for the property management side, and a team. And we're like, okay, well if we would buy that building, we're not really the ones, dealing with the tenant issues and all that kind of stuff. So now it's the return on our own time is not there. Is it worth the return on their time? And that's what we have to calculate, right? So. Okay, so does it make sense now that we have a team to kind of go forward for those kind of buildings? Anyhow, we haven't made the decision. Stay tuned on that one. But as of yet, we haven't progressed. But.
So that was actually going to be my next question. Are you guys, and you answered it, but self-managing, outsourcing it, third-party managing, what does that operations, because 100 units is, maybe it's a lot for some, maybe it's not a lot for some, but how does the operations look internally, especially using, other people's money, whatever. Obviously there's a level of, I don't want to mess this up. At the same time, you might not have as much risk because of owner financing. So how does the operational side work?
Yeah, I mean, we're well structured for sure. We spend a lot of time. I think the nice thing about it is that we started off doing everything ourselves, so we got to know exactly what worked, what didn't work, just from doing it over the years and years. So when it comes to screening tenants and all that, we could really train our team, accordingly based on what worked. But no, now we have a director of operations who oversees the whole property management portfolio. We have a financial controller who takes care, her and her assistant who takes care of all our financials. We have 2 virtual assistants as well who do the day-to-day stuff, whether it's helping me with my social media and the tenants inquiries and all that.
That's huge what they take off our plate.
Yeah.
But and then we've got field staff, right? Maintenance guys and different things like that. So it really, not that we're leveraging other people's time as well, right? Like, so instead of us doing everything, again, leveraging our team's time, and obviously we're paying them, but so it's just creating more time to create more deals, to create more money. And like, again, Mel and I have fun now. Well, we always had fun, but now I'm not answering the tenants all day, every day, which I liked. I enjoyed for a certain amount of time. But when I'm analyzing deals and I'm negotiating with seller financing, the toilet running issues, someone else take care of that. And I get to do the fun stuff, which I love, negotiating deals, finding deals,
working with partners, all that kind of stuff.
So now it's
mentoring
really
piece. Yeah, we get to do what we love now, which is
so now it's funner, right?
Fantastic. Yeah.
That's awesome.
What's the plan, I guess? Is it just, hold these properties, their legacy properties for 30 years? Is it, we want to get them to another stage and sell and then move into even bigger properties? Is it just continue to build up a portfolio in the management side? Do you guys have an end goal in sight, or just taking it day by day, year by year? How are you guys viewing this all?
We want to hold on to what we have pretty much. There's a few who might end up liquidating, but overall we're buying and hold. We're continuing for sure to have grow goals, or again putting in a lot of deals, so continuing to grow, but buy and hold, and again we're well structured. The whole business piece, we have, we work with our legal team and to ensure that we can pass it on to our 3 kids.
And our goal, so we set it about 6-8 months ago, whatever it was, is 1,000 doors in 5 years. And we just reversed engineered, right? So 5 years divide 1,000. We already had 100, right, over 100. So 900 divided by 5 years. Break it down every 6 months, and I think it comes up to like 180 doors per biannually,
per 6 months, yeah.
So for this year, for the amount of deals we have in the works, we're gonna get there. And again, if I fall short of it and I get 800 as opposed to 1,000, I'm still going to be happier than a pig. And you know what?
Exactly.
Yeah. And the other thing too, the long-term play for us. Once in a while we sell a building, and then after we sell, like, we shouldn't have sold it. We should have kept it. And I don't know, I like holding on to it. But our plan eventually, and the way we've kind of structured ourselves legally, is to, because the kids are already beneficiaries in all the corporations. So, eventually give it all to them. We'll still stay on. We'll get dividends or a salary or whatever it is, as long as our needs are met. When it's a continuous cash flow, then the kids will take over one day if they want to. And so that's the end goal, is to hand it all off one day.
Do they know that?
Well, they're 14, 11, and 5.
The 2 oldest are they're starting to get it, and even our 5-year-old little munchkin. So Colton, he'll even know, like, we'll talk about, mom and dad just bought another building. He's like, so that property's going to pay for Disney. And we're like, yeah.
That's fantastic.
That's the right way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a friend, by the way, I love that. So I have a 11-month-old daughter. Nice. And it's, who knows if they're going to like it or not, but I had a friend earlier who he owns his goal is to get to $100 million under management this year, all in Oklahoma City. He's looking up in Kansas City now. And his youngest son was like, "Hey, Dad, you always wanted a property in Colorado. Like, we enjoy Colorado. You should buy something there." So now the kids are starting to understand the benefit of what you do. So that's awesome. And I think, working backwards probably helps. And the reason why I asked is if they didn't know, don't let them listen, because then like, look, mom and dad are working for us. We don't, we can go through school and, we're going to be handed, 1,000 doors and, when I'm 20. So it's, but no, it's fun. And that's, I'm sure that's a major reason why you guys do what you do, is obviously for them, for yourselves, and having that, that legacy passed down, and, hopefully it works out really well, and I'm sure it will, so they can, they can benefit, which is the purpose of it.
Yeah. The big piece of it for us as well was, we wanted to make sure to have that extra time in our schedule, right? So of course, we put in a lot of extra hours when you start, not going to lie. I mean, we did get up early. We stayed up late when we were starting off, because we were working full time. Like when we bought the 12 and 12, we were still both working full time.
It was a side hustle.
It was a side hustle. So, but now, this is what we do. I get to be home, after school to with the kids. I get to put my kids on the school bus. If there's any activity, I can go whenever I want, right? It's great. We create our own schedule. And that was a really important piece for me to be there for my kids and have that flexibility of my schedule and not having to report to anybody else.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know we talked about seller financing, and that's one way to do it. What are other ways, and other people, other people's money? What else are you guys using, if there's anything else that you can touch on that's helped you guys build and scale to what you've done?
Yeah. And here in Canada, RSP for you guys is 401k or Roth IRA, that kind of thing. So the secured funds, we're utilizing those now too. We're getting mortgages through that. The building we're standing in was an owner financed in first place. Lady RSP was our down payment basically, and second mortgage. So it's just doing
out of province, right? It's not somebody we know. It's somebody that lives in a different province. Again, money is out there, right? People think, I can only ask people in my city. it's a large world, right? Go out there.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people with money who wants to do that win-win partnership.
Yeah, like the properties I'm looking in Florida, like there's a couple where the owner's willing to do a first, and I'm not going to use my money for the second, so I'm just going to find someone with the 401k, so I can utilize that as a secured second mortgage for my my down payment. So it's just different creative ways. Some people have cash and they want to invest as well, and we'll put it into a mortgage or a promissory note attached to a property. So it's literally kind of just like mixing matching to see what makes sense. And as long as it's a win-win, sellers winning out of it, the investors winning out of it, we win out of it, and then we bring it to the bank, they're getting a solid cash flowing asset, they're winning out of it too. So we do all sorts of things, but again, it's all legal. It's just creative, right? And that's what I love about creative financing.
It's limitless, right? There's no like, hey, now we're stuck for another 5 years. There's always a way of doing it.
Yeah, it's your imagination within the legal guidelines allows you to do more than what what you're capable of. If you make $100,000 a year, you're going to be capped at some point. But if you can use other creative structures, it's going to allow you to scale bigger, which is awesome. Is there? I think, for your structure, going out and buying a market rate deal, obviously you guys want to be able to create value. I know it's a very vague question, but being that everything's in your backyard, you probably have a better answer than if someone was buying all over the country. But is there a metric that you guys know if the average rents are 600 and I can get them to 900, I'm going to be able to either cash out this seller with a refinance? Is there something that when your wish list number is, I like 2 bedrooms, average rent X, is there anything that you guys, it's like an automatic no brainer, I don't even have to see the property type thing?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like when I'm looking at deals, sometimes it'll just me be going through and something as easy as like MLS, and I'll go through and I know what the price per door is. I know what the cap rate is. I know what the rents are for different. The bachelor's, the 1, the 2, the 3, and what was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah, cap rates, price per door, and the price per unit. So I know when I'm looking at properties, if I see a property that's listed, and let's use easy numbers, right? Like in our market, it's let's say between $80,000 and $100,000 a door. So if I see, you're trying to sell me a triplex, 3 doors for $450, I'm saying no because I know that that's not going to work in my market. So right away, it's truly knowing your market and knowing the numbers that matter. And then if I see a building, if I see a building that is $250K and I know could be 300, and then I'm seeing the rents, they're all 900 for all 3 units, but they could be 12. Again, it's just knowing that I'm not at that ceiling, that there's still room in the rents to go up. And that's truly where when we find those things, that's when we put the offer in even without seeing it, right? Hey, I'll go see the property later. The numbers make sense. We get the offer in. That way we lock the property up. We now control it. Now let's take our time and do the due diligence. So that's our whole philosophy is numbers first, lock up the deal. Now you control it. Now let's walk through and then see what see how much of a lift we can make out of this.
No, I like that. And reading between the lines or assuming, and you don't want to do either of them, but what I heard there and what I think people have to is really understanding where you're investing, right? It could be down the block, it could be across the country, but don't just buy because it looks cheap, right? Understand what you're buying. And then that's how you can look at 5 deals in a day is because the rents are 600, I can get them to 1,000. If the rents are 1,200 and the broker's telling you or the seller's telling you there's market, you can push. If on the wrong side of the tracks, it's not. So, understanding your market, whether it's cap rate, whether it's per door, whether it's average rent, what side of the tracks, is it in this school district, that school district? Those are the things that you guys know, that any successful person knows, so they know if it's a good deal or a bad deal. You can whittle through shit faster. And I think that's what some people get stuck on things and trying to make it work. But if you really understand your immediate area, you're going to be able to assess it quicker.
Yeah, I mean, real estate now is a national, international game, but real estate is still a local business.
Yes.
It is, you're dealing with people that live there. You're dealing with a property that is in that area. It's not something that, yes, you can do from a national, international level, but you've got to have those systems and those people in place on a local level in order for it to make it work. So the more information you have on a local level, whether it's by block, by neighborhood, by zip code, by school district, however you want to break it down, and every place is going to be different. the more information, the better resource you have in that local area, the better decisions and the quicker decisions you're going to be able to make, which allows you to get through those 5 properties a day.
Yeah. And you know why that's amazing is because when those, like if you're in a hot market and those good deals pop up, you're able to analyze like that. The other thing too is the ones that fall through the cracks, like the building we're in was on the market for like 6 to 8 months. Other buildings, sometimes they're on the market and people just don't see it. They just don't, you know, they're not doing that. The rents are well below the ceiling, you know, so it's just also picking up those breadcrumbs that are kind of left behind sometimes. And people have overlooked because it's been long market and it's wrong. And you know what? Giving it another shot and saying, hey, let's put an offer in and see what happens with this. And I know some people in hot markets are saying, Dave, that would never happen here. But I'm just kind of talking in general, whether it's the day that it gets listed, if you can know the numbers off the top of your head and be quick to act, or if it's one that's left behind, you know. And so that's kind of what we like to do is just, and like you said, knowing your numbers, knowing what works in your space or the space you're looking.
Yeah. And with creative financing, you know, knowing your numbers and knowing, you know, we always say exit before you enter, right? So you need to exit, you need to know your exit strategy. And when I say exit strategy, I mean knowing how you're going to pay back your private lender, whatever form they are in, before you enter the deal. So, you know, right away for us, when Dave kind of mentioned earlier, if you have I can't remember what you said, example, the duplex or triplex for 450 or whatever amount he gave earlier, you know, we would not have an exit strategy. It would not work for us because we're 100% financed. And it's making sure exactly, if we don't know how we're going to exit, how we're going to pay them back, we don't enter, because again, we want to continue, you know, we want to pay back those private lenders. And that's what we do. So that way they turn around, they say, Mel and Dave, it worked. I made money. I trust you. You know, let's do it all over again.
That's awesome.
Question for you. How are you guys forcing appreciation in these properties? Is it you're finding opportunities that you just know, hey, I can operate this better, whether it's on the expense side or just coming in and increasing rents because they're not at market? Or is it more of like a physical, hey, the building can use new siding and it'll look nicer, or it needs new roofs, or I can upgrade interiors, I can make it look nicer, and I can then come in, put a new tenant and raise rents? What's like your typical, or is it a lot of different things?
Yeah, and honestly, it's kind of all of the above. We
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, all of the above. We look at everything. So it's not just the one strategy. Sometimes it's a mix of everything. Sometimes it's just low rents are really low. And I mean, where we live, we can't just kick out the tenants or anything like that. So we have to have a lot of strategies in place for that. We have to have you need systems, you need plans to do it that way. We've done other ones where it's a complete gut job. You know, we recently bought a triplex and it was a bank repo, complete gut
as
job.
Is where it is.
But yeah, we knew that there would be a big lift once we're done. So we kind of look at everything, and sometimes it's a combo of both as well.
Yeah, and it really depends on like our appetite at the moment. So like right now we've got a couple of big renos. I wouldn't buy a bank repo right now because our resources are tied up. But again, I'm going to want to find the ones. So it's knowing, you know, where you're at as well and being real with yourself, you know, being able to look in the mirror. Like right now we've got a couple of flips. So I need to back off. I need to find the ones with underperforming rents where, hey, it's maybe a couple $1,000s per unit. I need some countertops, maybe some Allure flooring, a paint job. I'm done. You know, so nothing. So those are the ones that are kind of the low hanging fruit. And it's easier because, you know, you work with the tenants, you do creative strategies, you do cash for keys, everything's legal. But as soon as you can get those rents up, you know, you just brought it from here to here. So it just depends where you're at with the cycle of other deals. But yeah, that's kind of how we do it. And but again, the bank repos where you got to gut it and make it your own are fun as well. It's just you can't do those all day, every day.
No, I think you nailed it. I think understanding your limitations can get you can avoid bad situations. Because like you said, if you have 3 gut renovations going on, you might not have the maintenance staff, you might not have the right team in place, and that's how a deal goes sideways. And then, like you said, you exit before you enter. You know, if you're off by 3, 4, 5 months and you're a little short in cash or whatever it is, that's how those situations become significantly worse. So I think understanding your limitations and knowing where you're at and the deals that you have going on is important. Because if you know that you're tapped out on your heavy lift, I'm going to try and target a deal, like you said, where it's a cash for keys, or I throw some flooring down, just something that's low hanging, you know, to keep that engine going. And I think that's important because I think a lot of people look at this, read books, watch things online, and I want to be a billionaire. I'm just going to go buy everything. And, you know, 6 months later, they're in over their head on projects that they can't support. And I think that's important to understand, knowing limitations, getting involved in anything.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point.
When we've done this before in the past as well, we have all these deals, and sometimes there's amazing deals, and we don't want to pass out on them. Let's say we don't want to put our time or our money into the flip. Well, then we'll put it out there. Maybe we can do some kind of joint venture with somebody else and make it a win that way. Again, we're primarily solely owned, but that's something that we always explore as well in these types of situations where we go, okay, I don't want to put any more of my money right now into this property. However, I know it's a great property. Should I wholesale it? Should I do a JV on it? So we'll kind of explore different opportunities as well.
And that's good. Having the flexibility is important.
Yeah. So for these, for the deals that need capital to improve them, force appreciation and stuff like that, how are those structured? Because that, I'm assuming, isn't coming from seller financing. I don't think they're adding additional money to a purchase that they're going to finance for you, correct?
No, and you're bang on. So our whole philosophy again is never to use our money. Our lines of credit and our cash. I like for contingency, our plan CDE. So when we purchase it, again, we like to use the OPM, use seller financing, whether first or second, and then another means of another investor. Now, again, we'll usually get, like, this bank repo was going to be 100 to 150, whatever it is in renos. Well, we'll actively go out looking. Well, obviously before we firm up the deal, we'll have someone in line for the renovation, and those funds will be strictly for that. So, again, and sometimes we'll have to put some of our own money, right? You find asbestos, you find knob and tube, you got to rewire. So sometimes there's always the hiccups. That's why I like using other people's money, because if you used all your money to do that, and then you come to that hiccup and you're like, well, it's a lot easier it's going to be a lot harder at that point to go find someone to finance. You're going to pay through the nostrils on interest. Hey, I need an extra last amount to finish up this refinance. Whereas if you get it initially and then you run into those roadblocks, then you've got your own cushion. So that's always been kind of our philosophy, just to have that, like I said, plan C, D, and E if things go sideways.
Some people reverse, right? They'll want to try to save a little bit in interest and use their own. But then what happens if there's, things that go wrong? What happens if, there's major plumbing issues that you didn't foresee? And then you're stuck. That
always happens, right? There's always something that goes sideways.
Something always goes a little wrong. Exactly. How do you get people comfortable, or investors or other people, how do you get them comfortable in second positions? Obviously, you could put a promissory note and a mortgage, and that's one level of comfort. But, do you guys run into the objection of, well, there's a first position, I'm second, forget giving them more interest rate? Is that a major hurdle you have to overcome, and how do you overcome it?
You know what's funny? Like, we're negotiating one right now where the person doesn't want to be in first. So, like, I don't want to first. I absolutely want to be in second. So, and I never would have thought that would happen. I know, it's kind of, but again, so let me touch on two things there. When the people want to be in second, they say, Dave, I want the line. Well, either they can't do a first because the property's not fully paid off, right? There's still a mortgage in place. So when that happens, it automatically has to be a second if they want to. Now, the other thing too is like, this person paid off, but they're saying, Dave, instead of putting the lion's share up for financing and getting a little bit, I want the opposite. I want your financial institution, your private lender. I want to get that lion's share, that 75 or 80% loan to value in my pocket, and then I'll hold the remaining, and then it's less of a gamble for, So that's how they look at it as well. If it's strictly someone who's not, an owner or seller financing, it's strictly like this building. Hey, Mrs. RSP, put a second mortgage. There is some resistance, and again, their lawyers and accountants are going to say, your security is minimal. The bank is going to, or whoever's in first, you'll be having to see what's left over. I think, again, and it comes back to obviously us, it's easier now because we have a track record, but we did it a first time as well, right? And people do it all the time. I think it's just communicating and showing them, here's my cash flow matrix. Here's where it is. Here's where I'm going to bring it. Here's what I'm doing with your funds. Now I just show, here's what we've done before. Here are comparables. Look at the last 4 I've done. I've got equity in property, ABC. If things do go sideways, that this will happen. If when it happens, it doesn't refinance or it doesn't appraise as high, I'll sell the building, pay you out. So it's just like, I always put myself in their shoes. And again, reverse engineer, what would I need to hear? And what would I need to feel secure to lend you $100,000 or whatever it is? And most of the time, once you've answered their questions before you've even asked it, They're like, okay, well, you've obviously thought this through. And it just gets easier. After that after we got the first owner financing, it just snowballed. That first one was a little tougher, but after that, no, we've done this before. Oh, okay. And then just, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a big part of it as well is using our cash flow matrix, because, the way we analyze it, it has our before now and it has the after, which shows our exit strategy. So it's on paper, it's black and white, it's numbers, it all makes sense, so we'll explain how we calculate it, we'll explain how we come to our before and after, and they believe it because it makes sense, right? It just makes sense. So showing them our matrix has been a really great tool as well, just to build that confidence. And then, yeah, of course, as we continue to grow our portfolio, showing them previous deals.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, especially the answering questions before they come up. Because I was talking with a buddy of mine and he was looking at investing in this multifamily property with somebody else. And he sent me the book they put together and it was okay. And I just started reading and I was like, they're missing this, they're missing that, they're missing this. Like, besides even like questioning the information they're giving, it's missing a lot of information that I felt would be important for someone to judge whether this is something they should invest in or not. And I thought about it and said, that's worrisome, because if they haven't realized that that's something that I need, they haven't thought about me as their client, investor, whatever enough yet to understand what I'm looking for. And I need to judge whether this is something I want to do or not. And it just shows, not enough thought or, thoughtfulness of what I need to make a decision. And I was like, when I said to him, I was like, hey, like, there were other problems with it too, besides the point. But I was like, there's a lot of stuff missing in this. I think you need to consider not just the information that's missing and what that information is, but the fact that they didn't present it to you and felt you didn't need it. So It's very, very interesting to hear you say that, because I think it draws a lot of parallels to that.
And yes, no, and great point, because originally when we had things negotiating, they would go to their lawyer and then they would come back with questions. Well, my lawyer has 4 questions. What's your plan for this? And we're like, oh, now we got to come back. There's nothing more embarrassing than not having that ahead of time. And then, then their lawyer looks at them and say, well, what's their, what is their contingency for all this? And then not that your value, but not your credibility. It just decreases, right? They have to come back to you and ask if it's something that's their personal preference or things like that. But every deal has typical things that every deal needs, and if you don't have that in there, so honestly, if you don't know, call your own lawyer and say, hey, if I was coming to you saying I'm going to do a second mortgage, what would be the questions you would do? What would be the stipulations? What would be the, Dave, Mel, you need to know about X, Y, Z, and your security is going to be this. Okay, so again, reverse engineer, get ahead of it, talk to the accountant. If I came to you and said this, get ahead of it. And then now you know what the lawyers and accountants are basically going to tell them when they go to the table with them, and just make sure that that's in your delivery and your pitch deck. So it's just thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thinking ahead and closing all doors before while you're going through your pitch or your whatever it is, if you close all those objections as you go through it, it leads, they can't escape. They can't blame. They can always blame it on something. But if you know what the hurdles are and you address them all, it makes it a lot harder to say no. And I think that's what, that was the intention, right? I don't like second mortgage, right? Why? But if you can address it all, it takes that why out of the question. They're not going to ask that question, and it'll make them feel really good, especially when you have the track record, the credibility. But you have to start somewhere, and getting out ahead of it is important.
Yeah, I think all the credibility and everything you just said is huge, because I was thinking about this earlier and didn't bring it up. But when you were saying like, okay, why wouldn't somebody do it? And I know for me, I would be, if it was my property, I would always be very hesitant to do a seller financing, because the truth of the matter is, if I sell it to you and you decide to gut the thing and then halfway through you run out of money, well, now my property is probably not worth what it was when I sold it to you. And now I've got to spend money to get it back up, which will probably increase the value over the long run. But if I'm trying to get out and now I've got a clusterfuck of a renovation to work with, that's a headache I don't want to deal with. So having that credibility and removing a lot of fear and concerns from people is going to get those owners, sellers, and now your financiers over any potential concerns they have. And sure, there's always going to be the person that is like, no, I don't trust you, I don't know you, and I don't have the capability to come after you if you mess things up. But the more you can put together and the more information you can have ready, available, and together in a concise manner, that makes it easy for them to understand, comprehend, and feel comfortable with, it's going to remove a significant amount of barriers as you talk to these people, whether it's the seller financing, whether it's raising monies from investor, whatever it may be. The more you can put together, the easier that conversation is going to go. How are you guys able to have that conversation on the first seller financing? Because I think obviously, right, if it's like, oh, okay, I've listened to Mel and Dave now and I want to try this out, that first conversation you have with people didn't have experience in the seller financing world per se. How did you alleviate people's fears when you started?
For the first mortgage? Sorry, you cut out a little bit. For the first mortgage?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, a big part of it is that we had already created a name for ourselves in our city. You know, people knew who we were because we had purchased other properties before. We were very, very out there with our social media, our advertising all over town, you know, billboards, all that kind of stuff. So I think the reputation that we had created for ourselves certainly for sure helped. People say sometimes says, or somebody had said to me recently, you're a real estate investor or marketer, right? And it's like, well, they go hand in hand. And
for sure
we do, because exactly, we had to sell ourselves to that owner. If they had no idea who we were, it would have taken a lot more effort. But yeah, explaining, all basically making sure, thinking ahead of time, okay, what will they want to know, presenting it in that kind of form that you talked about, making sure that all their questions are answered ahead of time. And so that way, giving them no reason to say no to us, basically. Taking away the fear, right? Okay, all those what ifs, right? What are my intentions with the building? Are you gonna get it and not, what are my intentions? So when we take over, we're gonna be doing this and this and this, and just talking to them so they kind of see the bigger picture with it, and also knowing all the real estate lingo, right? So that way we go presenting ourselves as experts when we're talking to them.
Yeah, and again, some people, it's all tax perspectives, right? Like some, if they've owned it for, like, I'm just thinking of ones that we negotiate. They want to hold the first mortgage. Dave, I've had this building. It's mortgage free. I've had it for 25 years. I'll sell it to you, and let's use easy numbers. Okay, let's say they're selling it for 1.3. Dave, I'll hold $1 million for you. First mortgage, you negotiate the terms. If you can come up with 300, I'll do that. And I'll say why. Okay, how long of a term do you want? All this stuff, and they'll say I need that 300 because even though I'm not getting all the money, I'm still going to have to pay the capital gains. Like there's still a sale happening, right? So you're still going to have to pay the piper. So they want that downstroke, or that down payment, to pay their tax obligation, right? And then after that, they want to receive the rest of the funds through, usually it's 5 years or so. And again, if they want to make interest on their money, then they're just going to pay that every year for taxes. So there's so many, it's so funny, like negotiating with sellers now. I shouldn't say funny, but it's fun because everyone has a different want, need, and requirement, right? Mm-hmm. So again, the guy who's got it paid off, he just wants $300K right now so that he can pay his tax obligations. The other person, they want a second mortgage because I want the lion's share of my money now and I feel more secure just, only holding that much. So you'll come into so many different things. But again, it's being everything that we had said.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think that's a great place to wrap it up. You guys have given us a ton of information and knowledge. So thank you so much for coming on. If people want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, follow you on social media, where can they do that?
Yeah, so our username is Investor Mel Dave. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram. We're big on Instagram. We also have actually a video as well, yes. www.12in12months.com that people can listen to. And we kind of go into a little bit deeper. It's about a 15 minutes free masterclass where we talk about the creative strategies that we use.
Six different ways, yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, this was fantastic. Thank you again so much for coming on. I think people got a ton of value from it.
Yeah, awesome, guys.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you.